Hello there. We're here today with our friend, Dr. Michael Broder, and we want to introduce Michael and his work to our community and our people here. So, Michael, who are you?
Well, Steve, I am a psychologist, clinical psychologist. I've been in practice for over 40 years, and I've written a great deal because when you do the kind of work I do, you have a lot of things coming at you. So one of the things that I discovered early in my career was that if you're right, you kind of give that back. It doesn't just all die in your room. So one of the things that's led me to do, of course, is radio for 17 years and many, many audio programs. I've just completed my 6th book and have a couple more in the works. Believe it or not, I started out as an accountant. And the reason I tell you that, the reason that that's significant for what we're discussing today, Steve, is because I was very successful very early in my life. And I talk about that many places. But became extremely bored of what I was doing and got zero sympathy from anybody. I mean, everybody thought, what have you got to complain about? Well, this led me to do a lot of exploration in the 70s, which is a great time to do that. And I wound up picking up 3 more degrees going into psychology, which was a topic that I always loved as a hobby, but never ever considered as a profession, and have loved my work every day since. And something that I have seen happen so many times over the years is for people who were able to achieve abundance, achieve a stature, come in and talk about, gee, I've got it all, but I'm not happy. And that became the basis for stage climbing.
Okay, very interesting. So I think that a lot of people, including myself, deal with, boredom or doing what you're meant to be doing in life. What was on your radio show for all those years? Was it?
No, I did a radio call-in program. And in fact, I was the first president of APA, American Psychological Association's Media Psychology Division. And when I started doing radio psychologists were considered by the profession as almost like villains. Here we were coming in and giving advice out of our office, and people were challenging their therapists. This is something that never happened before.
What was the name of the show?
Psychologically Speaking with Dr. Michael Broder, and it was started off on WCAU in Philadelphia, and I went to New York. I was on WOR in New York, WABC in New York at one point. I was on NBC TalkNet with it, ABC Talk Radio, over a period of 17 years. And one of the things that happened was a bunch of us who were doing this at the time got together and formed an association. And by the time we got finished, APA considered us their best friend, because they realized that we were getting the word out about how psychology can help people, and hopefully making them all look good. So
Interesting. So,
my background, and I'll just add one other thing, which is kind of interesting. I didn't start out doing writing at the very beginning, but I started doing writing for my show because in order to get good calls on a psychology call-in program, you really have to have a stellar opening at the beginning of each hour. So I started off, so I had to write about a 6-minute opening for each hour. And they became the basis, and on every single topic that you could think of. I have drawers and drawers and drawers and drawers full of that stuff. But they all became the basis for books and audio programs. And because again, it was a shame to see it go out over the airwaves and then die. So that was how my writing career started. And then I just got hooked on writing and developed this system, which I initially, for many years, I'm talking 30 years, used only as an assessment tool for my own clients who tended to be high achievers or people who wanted to be high achievers.
okay, so that leads us into, well, what do you do? You know, so we have an idea of who you are. It's a very impressive life's work, and I'm privileged and glad to be with you today. So now I think we're getting a sense of who you are and kind of the sense of, not gravity, but the sense of legitimacy. You've been doing this so long on so many different levels. So what do you do?
Well, let's talk about stage climbing, which was a name that I came up with about 10 years ago for the technique that I started to use, but never really shared or wrote about. Well, actually, I did first talk about it in one of my Nightingale Conant programs back in the early 90s, but it was still very much in development. And it grew out of an observation that we don't come to adulthood in one piece. I work with adults. Many people have asked me to work with their kids, and I tell them, well, no, I don't work with children for the same reason that I don't go to a pediatrician for my annual checkup. It's not my specialty. However, now I'm a little glibber about it, and I say I do work with children, but only those in adult bodies. Because the people who come to me usually come with an issue that is indicative of an earlier time in their lives. See, we don't arrive, as I mentioned, we don't arrive in adulthood in one piece. We can be very, very well developed with respect to relationships, but are unhappy in our careers.
So when you say we don't arrive in one piece, is that like the mind and body is working, but the spirit's not working, or?
No. The mind, body, and spirit can be working fine, but in different aspects of your life. For example, if you have a wonderful career, and I've met many people like this, but for one reason or another, can't be in the kind of love relationship or marriage they want to be in, or they can't parent, or they can't be where they want to be spiritually, even though other parts of their lives are working, or they can't find what they're passionate about, even though they're in a great marriage or long-term relationship. So what we do is find where the block is in that area of life, remove the block, and then an organic process takes over, not unlike the way we physically mature. In other words, when we're born, we have a blueprint that is going to lead to what we're going to become as adults. However, things like proper nutrition, exercise, how well you take care of yourself, how well you live your life emotionally, the environment you're in, the people you associate with, and a million other factors come into play. So that's why you can have two identical twins, like my grandsons, two identical twins, and they can grow up being entirely different people, even though they start off with the same hardware. Well, it's kind of the same thing psychologically. And what we do with this particular process is not what has been traditionally done, where you go back and really obsess about childhood and about this and that. We go very quickly and find what I call a hook to a lower stage. And once we are able to remove the hook, things fall into place. And if the issue is finding the right relationship, you're going to be in the mindset, in the frame of mind, to find the relationship that's going to work for you. If it's about developing a career and being successful, you're going to find what is, what your passion and your purpose is, and you're going to get rid of all the fears and doubts that are preventing you from going there. A lot of people know what they want to do, but say it's too risky. So we get you off of your comfort zone, or the way I describe it, I coined a term many years ago that a lot of people like: comfortable state of discomfort, where things are kind of okay, nothing blatant is going on, but you're just not happy, you're not fulfilled. You know that there can be something else.
Right. That reminds me of a quote, and I'm not sure if I'll get it right, but someone's hitting their head against the wall, and they say, "Well, you're hitting your head against the wall." Well, because it feels so good when I stop.
Yeah, that's right. That's
so it's just the mundane safety zone. I've also heard a quote that life begins outside of your comfort zone. And I'm actually working with you, helping distribute and publish the course, and I find it's a unique process for identifying, not making a mountain out of a molehill, but also not disregarding it altogether. And I feel it's a good balance in methodology. And but we can get more into that later. This is kind of a more overview, but that helps clarify. So who, what, why do you do it? Why did you get started helping people? Or helping people in this way? You're an accountant, you're successful, the bills are paid and all that good stuff. And now it just wasn't enough.
Well, one of the interesting things is that when I was an accountant, I was helping people too. And the part of the part of what I was doing that I enjoyed the least were the things accountants did. I love talking to people about building their business, about what do you want to do, how do you, how does this all come together? I loved all those things, but the actual accounting part. I mean, I had an accounting firm, and I had somebody who did things for, I did most of the work for me, but I became less and less and less interested in
what's
changing
the
of tax laws and things like that. I
right?
wanted, but I realized that, and I was very young at the time because I went through school at night, and was actually started a firm when I was 22 years old. I was able to buy an office from a firm I was working.
Okay, so why did you start? I guess you're in the helping profession or the healing profession.
Yeah.
So is there a bigger why or something like that? That a mission, personal mission, that a light bulb went off or something?
Well, when I figured it out for myself, I realized that that's what I wanted to help other people do. And what I and then of course uh, the question was, well, what's the vehicle for doing this? And clinical psychology is not something you just decide you're going to do and take a summer course and get a certificate and hang up your shingle. It's a matter of getting the right degree to get into graduate school, doing a master's and a doctorate and an internship. And I was fortunate enough to have the best mentors that you could possibly find. I'm in Philadelphia, and Philadelphia, and I went to Temple, and Philadelphia was the mecca for clinical psychology in those days. I mean, the greats were many of them were at Temple.
So
And,
I know you work with some of the leaders. So who were some of the people you work with over the years?
well, many people listening would know the name Joseph Wolpe. He was the guy who invented or originated behavior therapy, and he was at Temple at the time. I did an internship with Albert Ellis, and actually went on to run his institute part-time many years later. But he was a very important mentor. Bill Swartley was my original mentor, and he was the first person I had talked to who really understood what I was going through. And also around the time my daughter was born, and I was mesmerized with how an infant develops. And I was just loved observing her, and how she couldn't do one thing today but could do it the next day. And then when I learned about developmental psychology, I thought, okay, this is all great, but what does it mean? How does it help people? And so I started putting those things together, and I came up with an assessment tool that I started using with my own clients without even talking to them about it at first. And I came up with 7 stages, the same 7 stages we use now in stage climbing. And when they would start talking about a problem or an issue, I would first look at what is it that these people, what is it that, what stage are these, is this person operating out of with respect to this issue? Remember, you can be incredibly together in every area of your life except one. And that's usually the one that somebody comes to see me about. So
everyone has their own one, right?
Everybody has, and that was the other thing. You asked me about changing professions. The one thing about accounting, and I don't say this at all, some of my best friends are accountants, including two people who work for me and who are still carrying on that operation at the time. But they love what they're doing. They love it. They can't wait till December so they can learn about the new tax laws, and they just, that's their passion. It was not my passion. And one of the things that the differences that I saw between psychology and accounting was that in accounting, there was a lot of sameness. There wasn't a lot of room for creativity. There was a certain way that things had to be done. In stage climbing, we call that a very stage 3 kind of profession. And then when I look at psychology, you can spend a lifetime in the field, which I have done by now, because I'm in my 40th year. And you can spend an entire lifetime in this field and still realize how much there is to learn, how much there is still to contribute, and every single person is different. Every single person is a unique creation. And once you are able to get rid of what I call those hooks that keep you from where you want to be, you flourish. And you move on to what would be your best life in that particular area.
So I'm going to try this anyway. It's a question I've been kind of asking people as we started to do these StreetSmart conversations. If you were a superhero, what would your creation story be? You know, was there something, one incident, like the Incredible Hulk was exposed to nuclear radiation, had all of a sudden had some superpowers? Was there something that kind of set you on this path?
Oh yeah, oh my goodness, many things. Just following. First of all, the times were changing. That was one important thing. You know, I'm in a very successful second marriage, 26 years now. But my first marriage was not the marriage I should have been in. I was one of the first people I ever knew to get out of a marriage. And I realized that I didn't have anything to lose. Rather than, for some reason, one of the things, if I had to point to a gift, I never listened to naysayers or fear. My father died when I was 9 years old. That was probably the most pivotal event. And I went, you know, I came home from school one day and found out that my father gone to work and had a heart attack and died at 46. And my childhood was essentially over then. That was the end of my childhood. So I had to really fend for myself in a lot of ways, and that was pretty much what it is when people talk to me about, say, wanting to start a business, but are afraid of this or afraid of that or afraid of this or afraid of that. My default position is, what do you really have to lose? What do you really have to lose? Because if you go with the fear option, you're probably going to regret it. And you'll come up with a million reasons why you didn't, your kids and this.
Well,
and
I think there's that one was it Pete Rose, or I'm not sure who it was, but you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
That's right. That's right. It's been said in a million different ways by many philosophers. Mark Twain said that you usually don't regret the things you do; you regret the things you don't do. And I found that to be extremely true.
So, is there a theme or one thing uh, that you found that people have done in their life to help? There's probably a million things and everyone's unique, but I would imagine over a course of doing this for so long, so it sounds like nothing to lose, go for it, because if you don't go for it, you're going to regret it most likely.
Well, by the way, when I say that, I'm not. I will never. I never have, and I never will encourage people to take, uh, to take silly risks and so forth. It's about doing something, really thinking it out, but getting rid of the fears. Because once you get rid of the fears, you may decide. For example, we're using the example of a business. Once you get rid of the fears, you might decide you don't want to really go into business. You want to do something else. But it's not my business what you wind up doing. It's my business getting you to the zone where you don't think, you don't say, well, maybe, but where this is the next step for me in this area of my life. That's what
Right.
my business is.
That makes sense. And I think as I'm going through the program now, there's a mindfulness component, and
Yeah.
I think that's a theme that goes across a lot of different traditions, but it's getting quiet so you can even hear what your inner voice is saying.
Well, that's right. And when you, by the way, that I'm glad you brought that up, because when you get to the stage, and stage, I call that stage 6 of the 7 stages. When you get to stage 6, stage 6 is the first of what we call 2 target stages, where you want to be operating out of. I don't have the answers for you, and nobody else does either. And anybody who says they do, either you're not operating out of stage 6, or they're giving you, they're selling you snake oil. When you get to stage 6, your answers reside inside yourself. And that's why I'm very big on meditation. I've been meditating myself for 40 years now, and twice a day, 25 minutes a day. People say, where do you get the time? But believe me, you get the time. First of all, when you meditate, you need less sleep, so that takes care of the number of minutes. But it's the one habit that I can tell you that as long as I am lucid, I will do. I would say that in an average year, maybe I'll miss 1 or 2 meditations because some emergency happens and I just can't do it. But it is something I look forward to, and virtually any issue that I'm trying to decide is going to come to me. Not, meditation isn't magic. You don't just close your eyes and then all of a sudden you get answers. I mean, that's a silly stereotype of meditation. But meditation has both short-term and long-term benefits. The short-term benefit is relaxation and lower blood pressure and all those things you hear about, and just kind of feels good. The long-term benefits are that you wind up getting answers from the most divine source there is, and that's the one that exists within yourself. That's your direct connection. And that's your direct connection to your uniqueness, which is about what you're passionate about, what you enjoy, what you truly love, what you create, what your purpose is, what draws you, irrespective of the external rewards like money or praise or this or that. When you're operating at the zone that this process gets you to, all of those things may be nice, but they're not necessary anymore.
Interesting. No, I think that was a good kind of summation of the process. I know you're a fan of Bob Dylan. Any Bob Dylan quote or two to finish up with, or any other quote come to mind?
Oh my goodness.
or any final thought, or just kind of to wrap
So many.
up.
Actually, I would answer that question. I would answer that question differently any week you ask me, because I'm always into quotes and reading stuff. My favorite quote this week is one that just about everybody has heard at one point or another, and this is this week, and that is the Albert Einstein quote, which is the definition of craziness: doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that is a very important summation of what many people do in the areas of their lives that frustrate them, or that don't work, or that they want to improve. So what you need to do, and that is about getting out of your comfort zone, taking a risk. Once you are able to experience the rewards of getting out of your comfort zone, it becomes addicting, and probably the most positive addiction there is, because if you look at the people you admire the most, they have all done that. They have all broken the rules that they thought they had to live by. And what the stage climbing process does is, I mentioned hooks. The main hooks are getting rid of all the reasons that you're not taking the initiative, becoming self-disciplined, living life by your rules, not someone else's, forgetting about things like fear of failure and fear of not getting somebody's approval. When I say forgetting about them, working them through. We have very effective techniques, cognitive behavioral techniques, that can iron that out very quickly. Then it's a matter of looking at where you are now. What are your roles now? And which roles do you want to keep? Which roles are nourishing? Which roles are necessary? Which aren't? And getting yourself to the point where you have the time to pursue passions. And then once you've gotten rid of all those, what we call lower stage hooks, then you're in that zone of your highest potential. And that's where the action is. And from that point on, you know what works for you, and you know where you want to go. And one passion leads to another. We don't choose our passions, by the way. We just plain don't. They choose us. We don't, just like we don't choose our emotions. If we did, we'd only choose happiness, right? Mm-hmm. So they choose us. And we need to learn. We need to learn how to find what we have been chosen for, and life does not get better than that.
No, that's excellent, and I think that it's something that almost like a muscle of everyone knows they should follow their passion, but the more you follow your passion, I like that. Passion leads to passion. You exercise that, and it's just a whole quality of life shift, I think. Quantitative and
Follow
qualitative.
your passion. Follow your passion has become a cliche in a way, but it is also one of the reasons that it's become a cliche is because people know that it's a good thing to do, but don't don't know quite how to do it and get it to fit into their lives, and to live by your choices, which is life at its best. When you're living your life according to your choices, life just doesn't get better than that.
Excellent. That's a great place to finish up. So, Dr. Michael Broder, what a pleasure to talk with you, and personally to get to know you better. And thanks so much.
My pleasure, Steve.
Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay. All right.